We saw in our last recording that the Lord Jesus had been invited to a meal at a Pharisee's house. We'll now read the next section from Luke's Gospel. This is Luke chapter 14, verses 7 to 14. Now he told a parable to those who were invited when he noticed how they chose the places of honour, saying to them, "When you're invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in a place of honour, lest someone more distinguished than you be invited by him. And he who invited you both will come and say to you, 'Give your place to this person.' And then you'll begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you're invited, go and sit in the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, 'Friend, move up higher.' Then you'll be honoured in the presence of all who sit at table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." He also said to the man who'd invited him, "When you give a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbours, lest they also invite you in return and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you'll be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just." So the next event that Luke records in Jesus' life emphasizes humility. We should not consider ourselves more important than we actually are. Jesus had been invited to a meal at a Pharisee's house, as we saw last time, and he noticed how all the guests went to the best seats, taking the most prominent places for themselves. So he said to them, "Think of how embarrassing it would be if someone more important than you came in and you were told by the host to give up your place. You'd be so embarrassed that you go and sit in the lowest place. When you're invited," Jesus said, "take a low place, and the host may say, 'Friend, take a more important seat.' You'll be honoured then in front of everyone." Now this is a very practical matter for all of us. In the New Testament of the Bible, we find that Paul wrote a letter to the Christians at Rome. And in the letter he writes, "I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment." The Lord Jesus also had a word for the host of the meal. Who should he be invited? Well, it pleases God if you invite those in need. We have to care for them, show love to them. Unlike your friends and relatives who will invite you back, these people can't. But there will be rewards in the future at the resurrection. All who've died trusting in the Lord Jesus Christ, their bodies will be raised from the dead at a future time, called the resurrection of the just. After that, God will give rewards. Well, here's something for us to think about. Do we think of ourselves more highly than we